Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I am Hafsa Khalil Toor, PhD scholar at National Institute of Psychology, Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad, and assistant professor at Foundation University, Islamabad. As we know, National Institute of Psychology is conducting 8th International Conference on Mental Health and Productivity, the Emerging Challenges for Youth. And NIP is providing opportunities for professional, teachers, and students for their personal and professional growth. Today, we are gathered here in continuation of series of workshop and seminar. The today topic is for panel discussion is Growing Up in a Powerful Digital World, Voices of Youth. The speakers gathered here, as you can see on the screen, are amazing, multi-talented group of experts. We have Professor Dr. Tim Unwin from Royal Holloway University, London. He's a chairholder of UNESCO in ICT 4D. Then we have Professor Dr. Asir Ajmal, Dean, Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, Gift University, Gujranwala. Professor Dr. Mohammad Tahir Khalili will join us soon. Then we have Professor Dr. Amna Moazzam from Lahore College for Women, University, Lahore. Then Professor Dr. Gulzar Ahmed, Head Department of Psychology, Lahore Garrison University. Then we have Dr. Jameel Malik, Associate Professor, National Institute of Psychology, Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. We have Dr. Bushra Hassan Malik, Assistant Professor, Department of Psychology, International Islamic University, Islamabad. And we have Heather Sheesh Meher, Motivational Speaker and PhD Scholar, National Institute of Psychology, Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. On the behalf of organizing committee of NIP, I welcome all my esteemed panelists and attendees. I would like to share the format of today's panel discussion. It has three main phases. In phase one, our panelists will share their opinion and their thoughts about the topic for today's discussion. Keeping in view the number of panelists, I humbly request my panelists to share their valuable opinion within 3 to 4 minutes. Then in phase two, we based on question answer session, and in phase three would be regarding suggestion and conclusion remarks on the topic given by the panelist. So before starting the formal session, I would request all my attendees to kindly mute their mic and enjoy their session. And in case of any question, you can directly ask the question in the chat box. So to start the session, I would request Dr. Unwin to officially begin the session by sharing his view about today's topic, growing up in powerful digital world, voices of youth.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this. I have to say, I'm concerned that the panel seems to be largely male and quite elderly, and I'm probably the oldest here. So I'm not quite sure what I'm doing talking about voices of the youth. But over the last decade, I've particularly sought to build greater interaction between generations. Certainly in my role as Secretary General of the Commonwealth Telecommunications Organization, we always had youth panels in our events. And I used to get chastised by some of the older people. But also in our work in Tech Together and the Digital Environment System Coalition, we have particular youth groups. And in my 3.5 minutes, I'd just like to maybe introduce 4 themes. The first is, and this has been brought home to me recently by some younger colleagues who say that the world is incredibly different now from when I was your age, young. You know, for the younger generation now, they are embedded within digital technology, a world where the individual matters, that's dominated by neoliberalism from the US, and that is somehow right. Having grown up in a world where the Soviet Union was strong and where there were many different ideologies, I know that view is wrong. And I think this is something that we need to grapple with. Secondly, we must never forget that we are the data. And I think young people using digital technologies forget that they're almost being enslaved. And I use that word very carefully, but imagine having a day without your digital device. I'm thinking of launching a campaign, 1 in 7 without. It's really tough, it's difficult, but we're giving that data to global corporations. Thirdly, I think the tendency, particularly amongst young people, is always to see digital technology, it's good. And I think 25 years ago, that's probably what I thought. But as I've grown even older, I begin to realize that the harms that digital technology cause are deeply worrying, and particularly the work we've been doing on the use of digital technology for sexual harassment, for the abuse of women. I think this is something we have to grapple with. And finally, fourthly, I'm concerned about the emphasis on brevity and immediacy. I think, and yes, I use Instagram. Yes, I use Twitter. I've learned to write a lot in 140 characters, I can tell you. But somehow digital technology encourages this immediacy, and there are dangers in everything being brief, because we cannot convey the nuances and the subtleties and have the intellectual, and we're mainly academics here today, but we can't have those valuable intellectual discussions when nuance matters. And certainly I'm becoming increasingly concerned about what's widely called cancel culture, the way in which voices that are different are shut down. And being old and different and white and European in a Pakistani context, thank you for inviting me, but I will now shut down. And I hope that's set us some interesting ideas.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anwin. Dr. Asir, I would like to ask, what do you say about this, and what's your opinion about the topic under discussion?
Yeah, I think following Dr. Anwin's lead, I would also like to take a slightly different stance. I think in Pakistan and many other countries, youth, this slogan about youth has become quite an obsession. I remember when there was an earthquake in Pakistan, people were saying really offensive stuff like, oh, we must save the children first, and leaving the elderly to fend for themselves. I believe that this overemphasis on youth in itself is a problem. When I was given this topic, I was a bit troubled because it is this, we cannot disconnect the youth. In fact, the problem arises, a huge problem arises when we disconnect youth from the elderly. I think there's a great deal of need to emphasize support for the elderly, for the grandparents. In Balochistan, for example, when the Kares system was abolished, the Kares was where the elderly sat down with the youth and they talked to them. And Kareses are now being replaced by tube wells. And this technology has caused the youth to lose that traditional contact with the elderly, with the grandparents. And there is a rising not only drug problem, but there is an increase in terrorism. So I think we need to stop disconnect like this, this modernist obsession with children and youth and the future sort of totally ignores the value, the connection, the linkage that we have with the past, that we have with the tradition. And yes, as we acknowledge that there are some good things about, many good things about modern technology, the fact that we're able to communicate. I'm sitting in Lahore, you guys are, Dr. Anwin is probably in the United States, if I'm not wrong. There are others, you're in Islamabad, Lahore, and so on. But at the same time, the sort of another very common thing is sharing food. We can't do that over the internet, unfortunately, which is a very, very essential part of these conferences and networking activity, the importance of these things. So I would just like to conclude, since it's 3 to 4 minutes time, and I think I've already run over my time, is that this obsession with youth and children is misplaced, that we need to talk about families, and we need to talk about people, and we need to make this age or, this connection with people. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asir. Dr. Amna Mozam, we have heard Dr. Asir very insightful opinion. What do you suggest and what do you say about this? Dr. Amna.
Thank you so very much for the invite. I agree with both of the worthy panelists who have thoughts, and I just wanted to say that I was a little bit excited when I get to know that at the age of 42, I am going to represent the voices of youth. But then I suddenly realized that probably I have been invited as the chair of psychology department, and as a lead representative for leading the active citizen program with youth for a very long time. So I have to represent their point of view, not mine, basically. So thank you for that. Since I have been engaged with so many young students around me and having one young daughter and one son of 19 and 14, I really understand this very well, that what does this digital media has a powerful connection with their life, and all the time which they spend around 7 to 8 hours a day on Insta, Snapchat, Discord, WhatsApp, and you name it, and everything is there. And this is part and parcel of everything they do. They eat, they wear, they go out. They are just having that life, carried with themselves all the time. So that is, of course, bringing a lot of challenges in their life. And I think if I just jot down very few of them, the first one is in a bigger term, I would say the unhealthy comparison which they are carrying with themselves all the time, in terms of comparing their wealth, their status, their friends, when they see that the other people are having very lavish life, outgoings, attractiveness, and things like that. So that is causing a lot of unhealthy comparison in them and leading towards different psychological problems. Then another big challenge is that it has replaced the real life interaction. And when we see that someone is living, we see the Insta talk versus the real life, it's absolutely different. All the time on Insta, on digital world, you are portraying yourself as being a very influential, very happy, very positive character, whereas in the real life, you're probably one of the person who is stuck with your isolation, your depression, your anxiety, your stress, and so many other psychopathological tendencies. So, talking behind the screen is different than the real emotional issues you are facing. So this is one of the biggest challenge we need to address as a psychologist, as an academicians. Then I think harassment is something which I just can't undermine, being a woman, because I think although it's for both genders, it's for both genders, believe me, it's equally for boys, that the girls used to send them very inappropriate messages and things like that. But of course, the trauma is big and high for girls and women. So we just can't undermine that thing. And bullying is something which is very much on digital world, and we really need to talk about its solutions in today's talk. So majorly, there are the content risks which the youth is facing, there are the contact risk which the youth is facing, and then there is the conduct risk. So these three are the domains in which I think the people are facing problem. If I exclusively at this point talk about the negative sides of digital world, because I really don't think I am left with the time to talk about any positive side. So better to give time to someone else, and then we'll be talking again about the solution in the next round. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amna. We have Dr. Gulzar Ahmed with us. So, sir, what do you suggest about the topic under discussion? Ji, Dr. Gulzar. Dr. Gulzar, can you hear me? So, I guess he's not here. Okay. Moving on to Dr. Jameel. Ji, Dr. Jameel, what do you say and what do you suggest? So far, you have heard our panelist.
Thank you very much for inviting me to the discussion. First of all, I have one observation. It's about youth, and you have started a chronological order, starting from most senior to the most junior. Isn't it not something like, the other way around? We should have first given the chance to the youth who are still waiting. But anyway.
So you should be very happy that we have counted you as the young one.
No, I fall somewhere in the middle maybe. And the mid-age crisis has its own complications. I would like to talk something different than what my respected colleagues have already discussed about this digitalization and the problems with the digitalization. No doubt there are problems, there are complications, there are consequences also, but there are some positive things. Maybe it's how I look at this digitalization. It's the time of reverse learning. We learn from our younger generation how to do things on digital platforms. They know better than us because they have started, they have started using their finger on those things. And we have shifted our learning from manual to the digital. So we are somehow we are marginalized on the technology things. There is one point that I have listened from many of the colleagues, many people who talk about negative things of the digitalization, and that is, that because of this, because of the use of the gadgets, we are not using our brain. That is how people translate, most people in our community. Like I have heard from people saying that because, in our earlier generations, we used to learn tables, we used to learn many things, and now it's like, you do it on fingertips, you use softwares, you use gadgets to do those things which we in past we used our brain to do those things, and that may be resulting in dysfunctioning of brain or less proactive brain. But I look at differently, I look at this thing at differently, because we are not by using digital things or by using digital platform, we are not limiting our brain functioning, we are just changing the way our brain should work. Because learning these digital instruments itself is a complicated thing, and it requires a lot of brain work. So I think that there are negative, no doubt there are negative of the digitalization, but the positive aspect of the digitalization are more than those negative things that we can talk about for hours, because it's all the way, it's every time it's facilitating somehow, whether it's like looking at the news, whether it's sharing things to the larger community, for an academic, if you look from an academic perspective, um, look at the YouTube, various channels, learning things, everything is there. If I know something and I want that larger community may facilitate from this knowledge or the skills, I can share it with a larger audience, which was not possible, when we were not using those digital instruments or digital platforms. So I think that we should highlight the positive aspects of the digitalization rather than thinking about the negative things. Of course, as a mental health professional, we have to look at the negative aspects also, but promoting the positive thing itself is a treatment to the negative things. And that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jameel. We have Dr. Bushra, and we have heard Dr. Jameel a very different perspective. Dr. Bushra, I guess you are the true representative of youth. So, what you like to contribute to the ongoing discussion?
Assalamu alaikum, Hafsa. First of all, thank you very much for keeping me on board. Special thanks to you and Dr. Rubina Halim for organizing and inviting us. And very unfortunately, we are far away from being youthful and raising voice on their behalf. So at least somehow I'm closer, a little bit, relatively closer to being a bit younger. So I will be very precise, and there is some statistics I would like to report over here is that by year 2025, the population of Pakistan is projected to be 227 million. And among those, 63% of the population will be comprising of people who are less than 30 years of age. So therefore, this is a very high time that we need to be very watchful about any challenges that young people are going to face, because 60 is such a large proportion of the population that is going to be the representative of Pakistan in the next 3 or 4 years or so. So I think it's a high time to identify the risks, including extreme poverty, inequality, violence, and equip our youth towards digital and smart solutions, because this past 2 years have equipped us and made us learn hard ways the importance of technology. And consistent with my colleague Dr. Jamil, I'm also a staunch advocate of the positive use of digital devices. And because it's not about the ICT that is problematic, it's the very use of ICTs that is problematic. If you are putting some rubbish in, you will get a rubbish out. So the problem is not with the digital communication, digital device, the problem is with the very use and the utility of the devices. So with reference to the particular social, cultural and developing context, the primary risks that can impede a youth to well equip and train themselves to the better utilization of ICTs is remote location, lack of accessibility, the very high price of digital devices, as well as we need to identify the potential risk of privacy, and and as Dr. Anna has highlighted, the darker side of the ICT. So we need to identify any risks which are associated with the potential exposure to the harmful content that is available on digital devices. So this is all initially that I had to want. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bushra. Dr. Gulzar Ahmed has joined us. Dr. Gulzar, what do you suggest and what would you like to add to the ongoing discussion?
Nice, and thank you very much for inviting me in this discussion. It's a very interesting and very important topic that you have selected for this forum. Growing up in a powerful digital world and the voices of youth. Of course, the growing up means including children and then again who have been grown up or in the age of youth. I think this is the time then when they have seen the whole process of development of the digital technologies during the last 2 decades especially. And during this first 2 decades of the 21st century, we see that the whole world scenario has changed, and it is rapidly changing day by day. So as we see that, is it first question may arise in this area, that is it influencing and persuading our life? The answer would be yes. The other question may be, in what areas of life the digital technology is influencing us? Again, the answer might be that in almost all areas of life we are being influenced. Then the third important question arises in this discussion is that what are the consequences of this powerful digitalization technologies? So here we need to make a debate. Okay. So the point is that there are 2 aspects in this area. One is, you can say, the healthy impact of digital technologies on the youth and the world around. And the second option is the harmful impact. As we see that the healthy impact is that, first of all, I remember that if we study child development as a psychologist, so brain development is most rapid thing in this area, and the physical along with the physical development. So for the brain development and neuron development, I think digital technologies are doing a lot thing good for the brain development of the children. And this is a stage when you can say that almost 50% of the brain is developed during early childhood stages. So by this stimulation and connectivity of the neurons, which is supported by the digital technologies nowadays, so brain development is quite rapid. And this is the great edge being given to the children and the youth around in this age of technology. So this is the biggest advantage, and the connectivity around the social contacts and different websites and the social sites, they are getting amazing experiences, observations, and I think they are going super as compared to the previous generations, frankly speaking. Okay. So I remember a long time ago, I read a book written by Charles Silverman, where he mentioned that there would come a time when the younger generation would teach the elder generations. So that I see in my life that this time has come up now. So as we see that the knowledge is flowing from downwards to upwards, means the younger generation is teaching the elder generations because they are more sharp, they are very clever, they are more smart, and their learning and expression abilities are far higher than the older generations. So this is, I think I can say here, many thanks to the digital technologies. And the growing children and the growing youth is much smarter than the elder generations. So anyhow, at the same time, some of the speakers have also talked about the harmful aspects like that overexposure to the screen has negative effects, physical, psychological, physiological, developmental changes, speech and communication issues, issues of impairment, isolation, suicidal ideation, suicides, cyberbullying, victimization, pornography, exposure to sexual abuse, harassment, traumas, PTSDs, so many things you can say in all areas of life. We can say our youth and children are being influenced in a negative way. But this is not the point that we can say this is a bad thing to use. But the point is that how we use the technology. Everything is good and bad. Even a knife is good and bad. Just like even this technology is good and bad. But we also see that it has many healthy effects as well, as I mentioned earlier a bit. So even the people of our generation are also enjoying a lot, and we see that it should have been happened in our childhood or youth, so that world would have been so amazing, fantastic, and enjoyable. So the knowledge is vast, and the world is very vast before us, and there are sources of information and sources of education. And whatever question comes in our mind, we can see around what is going on all around the world. So the world has become really very beautiful after this digital technologies has come on with us. So I see beauty all around. Even this, while we are discussing on this forum, I see many good things are going on around us. So there are very good and bad things, but later on I would like to say that in spite of all these advancements of technologies, or whatever you can say, the advanced technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning and the Internet of Things, the latest things, the machines are talking to each other and they are making decisions for us. So what is going on all around is very, very beautiful and very amazing for all of us. But the point is, again, the most important point here I would like to put forth to all of my audience and the speakers is that whether all these developments that we are surprised and we are amazed and we are happy, are they causing, are they developing human beings in a healthy way? Are they intellectually and morally developing? Are they learning from the past experiences? But the point again, let me say that during these past 2 decades, what has happened? We have seen massacre. We have seen the destructions of infrastructures, mass killings, ruthless killings of innocent people in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Egypt, in Yemen, in Palestine, in Kashmir, in Myanmar, and the poverty prevailing all around the world as well. Poor people standards have not increased. We are still starving. We are living with hunger and disease all around. So what is happening all around? Okay, we are happy with the digital technologies. Okay, this is good thing. But human beings are not learning anything. They are not intellectually and morally developing. They're rather degrading in morality. Big powers are showing their muscular strength to the weaker nations. So what is going all around? You can see what is happening all around. No development, no moral, intellectual, and ethical development is going on. So this is the big question for all of us, that in spite of all these digital technology development, where we are and where we are heading on, and what should have the course of action in our life. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gulzar. We have Heather Shishmehal. Heather, you have heard from the panelist as well as you are reading the comments in the chat box. So what you like to add, but be brief, we are short of time. Thank you. Ji Heather.
So I'm cognizant that I am here representing the youth as well. And and I want to say, thank you to all the panelists who have talked, I think, greatly about the good and the bad of living in a powerful digital world. And I would have liked to spoken more about games and mobile apps in particular. But I think, I'm just going to give a little bit of perspective on context. Being a youth, I grew up at a time where the world was changing from analog to digital. So I was a child when there was no internet, and I was also a child when there was internet. And so I saw dial-up when, it was expensive and the phone line would get used, and to play a game, sometimes you would get disconnected because Ami wanted to use the phone, right? Which is not where it is. So I'm very cognizant of things that Tim has said about increasing access. But from my perspective, personally, I did have access. I did have privilege. In fact, when I was about, 13, 14, our friends would come over. I had an older brother, and they would bring their computers because internet was not so fast. And we would hook up with LAN cables and a physical modem, and we would start playing games all night or all weekend. And that used to be the entire house, 15 people. Everyone used to pick up and bring their desktops. And I'm still very much a fan of, desktops and that physicality of technology in a way that a lot of people today with mobiles are not. Over time, I loved games. I kept playing in tournaments. I just don't see that, it's a purely bad or it's purely good. It just is, it is a part of my life. And I became a hobbyist. I am in bringing, we're bringing people together in games in Pakistan. We have a Games Emerge conference. My wife runs a company and she makes video games. So, I'm part of that as well. I've been a hobbyist. I've been part of the Game Developers Conference in US, and we've organized Games Emerge Conference in Pakistan. And so, people who are interested in making games and harnessing this technology, I would say, get in touch with me, because there are games for self-care. There are games by NHS in the UK. There are games by the FDA in the US that are prescribed for anxiety, that are prescribed for PTSD, which your insurance and the government now is willing to cover. Similarly, for smoking, we are also working to help mothers in a mobile game to encourage breastfeeding in Nigeria. And so games are a big source for change, and they're a big part of the digital world. In fact, we don't realize, but games are bigger than movies and music and TV and radio combined. So the biggest category of digital world is in fact, the games. And like Dr. Asir Ajmal said there, and I believe Dr. Gulzar as well, that there's a lot that goes on in brain development also, which games are doing. There's companies in Pakistan that are helping people with mobility issues by using games. So I think that my message is that I would encourage everybody who's here, especially the students, to do more research on games and to explore, because it's a very big world, specifically how they're good, how they're bad, and give us more rich data. And I think that's pretty all I can share in these few minutes.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you. From our attendees, we have heard from Dr. Tim. We can see from the chat that technology itself is neutral. Humans are making it good or bad. So, Dr. Tim, what do you think? According to one of our attendee, she's saying that the technology is making work balance life, or the WhatsApp group is making the work balance life, not like it's not making us feel comfortable or it's destructive. So what do you think and what do you like to add? Some of us must serve as a reminder for the darker side of the technology. What do you like to add?
Thank you. This is obviously a huge question, and much of me does feel that technology itself is neutral. I think we must never say that technology causes something, because that's a very deterministic, technological determinism that I would be strongly against. But I think we have to recognize that all digital technologies and analog technologies, thanks for the reminder, Haida, but all digital technologies are made by individuals, by people, by companies for a particular purpose. And yes, there can be unintended consequences as well. But by and large, those technologies are young entrepreneurs, tech developers. They want to make money. I mean, that's perfectly natural. How do you make money? And I think very often that is through exploiting, unknowingly, perhaps deliberately, lots and lots of people. I just feel that too many people just focus on the good side, and I completely recognize that over the last 20 years I've become darker and darker and darker, and it's often difficult to remember the good side because there are lots of benefits. But some of us have to be the guilty conscience. But fundamentally, digital technology is used and created to create greater inequalities in the world. Those who have it. I mean, Haida, I should just get just a reminder. This was my first mobile device. I still have it, and it's wonderful. I can get it out of the box for you and show you. But it's hugely different. And yes, there are benefits. But we just have to remember. And I think, Hafsa, you asked earlier, what can we do to change things? And I think maybe 2 or 3 things. One, encourage people to learn about all aspects of technology, that they can be good, but also they have harms. Secondly, protect ourselves from those harms. Make sure we always use technologies that are safe and secure. And thirdly, governments need to put in regulations. And Haida, I sent you a message about, what I'd love to know what you think about the Chinese restrictions on game playing now, because the Chinese government is so worried that it is prohibited young people from playing games except for 3 hours in a week, on 3 weeks of a night. I guess, I know this is public, so I better be careful what I say, but I guess many people feel that's a bit extreme. But at least the Chinese government is trying to do something about it, whereas many other governments in the world are basically letting everything rip, and the damages and harms that are caused by digital technology are not appreciated enough. Hafsa, I hope that's, I could talk for hours on this. Shut myself down again and switch myself off. But remember how wonderful these were,
Yes. Okay. Heather has mentioned.
If I may respond very briefly to Tim, is that I'm not going to, I'm aware of the Chinese government's. I'm aware of the Chinese government's move. Somebody's mic is on, which is quite distracting. Tim, I think I'm not going to comment on the specificity, whether the 3 hours is right or wrong. I agree with you that making some measures is good. I would just, give a personal example. I used to play competitive Dota, and then I got married, and then for 4 years, it was unplugged. And now, after 4 years, because it was either my marriage or it was that game. And so now I play it again, and I play it responsibly. Or at least I'd like to think I'm responsible. But yeah, the dopamine can get so satisfying that with gaming, it can become an addiction, and there is a problem in China, in Japan. But again, it's a reality that we have to look at and explore. That how do we control it, and how do we understand it, and understand whether the technology is manipulating us, and how much we are getting manipulated, or how much is benefiting us, because it can also be a force for good. If you're depressed and you're not doing anything, but maybe if you're playing a game, you can come out of the shell. So I've also, experienced that in my life, that there have been times that games have helped me overcome certain difficult periods.
Okay, thank you so much, Heather. Dr. Asir, I would like to ask you a question. We are talking about, as one of our panelists repeatedly saying about the aspect of mental health related to technology. What do you like to suggest? What do you say about the mental health issues related to technology? Dr. Asir.
I would like to emphasize, it may have sounded like I was against the use of technology. That's not the case. I personally run a YouTube channel which is devoted to mental health issues and knowledge of psychology. I don't have, I don't have millions of subscribers, but I do have about 10,000 subscribers, and of whom a majority is in the 18 to 25 years range. So what I would like to say is that, and they're across India and Pakistan. So what I would like to say is that I understand, and I've seen, recently I attended a virtual conference of the American Psychological Association, and they had a whole session on virtual, dissemination of information and use of digital media for promotion of mental health. And there were people who were using, psychologists who were using TikTok to get the message across. And I agree with Dr. Unwin that there is a trade-off. We cannot write in-depth articles on TikTok or Facebook. And it's very cumbersome if we try to carry on an intelligent discussion over Facebook. But at the same time, the sheer reach of the digital media is such that I think that we can get the message across and we can reach a very large number of people, and that we can, help people help themselves with, so for instance, I teach how to use REBT to help yourself. And I teach, other mental health strategies to cope with stress, and hypnotherapy and self-hypnosis and relaxation techniques and so on. So what I would like to say is that, yes, there is a value to technology, but at the same time, it's highly addictive. And it's highly addictive because of its multi-purpose, multi-use thing, so you've used your phone for something, then you remember something else that only you can only do it on your phone, and then there is something else, and then there is something else. So I think there is the danger that you would lose contact with your family. I see, sometimes I look at my family and I see 5 people sitting on their phones in the same room, and there is that danger that we get cut off even when we're physically in each other's presence.
Thank you, Dr. Asir. Dr. Amna, I would like to ask that day in and day out, our youth is using digital technology. What do you think, how informed our youth is about the safe use of technology?
I think that educating that social media use in a true sense and how to handle its, merits and demerits, it's very important to disseminate this information to our young generation, because everything has a research implication side and a clinical implication side. When I look into the research says one should not use digital media more than 2 hours, let's say. But this isn't possible in this time, especially in the time of COVID. The student is having all the school online, all the activities online, the friends are online, and the life is going online. It's on digital world. So you can't just restrict them to be on the media or on the digital tools for 2 hours. So realistically speaking, what we need to do is that we need to see that what kind of the information the child is looking on digital world. If the person is not adult enough and it's not young enough to take care of these things, one has to monitor, the parent or the guardian has to monitor that what quality, what games, what apps are being used by the child. And second thing is that I have seen that there are lot of young individuals who just use digital media to distract their thoughts and their feelings which they are having in themselves, and they are not positive. For instance, they are in my counseling practice, I have seen many young girls who are having the thoughts of self-harm, and just to distract themselves they are using digital world and different apps and games and things like that. So from dark websites to inappropriate materials and things like that, one need to be very careful, and we have to begin with encouraging children to talk about educating its merits and demerits. Then simultaneously, we need to encourage opportunities for real life interaction, especially in this COVID world, because it has become very difficult and a very, you can say this, it's going to be an untouched task that how we are going to achieve that in this time, but we have to do that. Then I think whenever any problem occurs, we should educate the young individuals that there is no stigma in reporting that something wrong has been done to them, like whether in terms of harassment, in terms of bullying, because the harassment has legal laws to be implemented and things like that. So we need to generate an awareness about these things as well. So I think this is a time to educate our youth, our children about its both sides, so that they would be well aware of the fact that when and where to give a prey, to think, to revisit, and then act appropriately.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amina. I would like to ask a question from Dr. Gulzar. One of our students have asked that. Sorry. So one of our students asked about how digitalization has changed the family dynamics. Can you highlight its importance?
That's great point. As just I think a little bit before earlier, Dr. Asir Ajmal mentioned about the family meetings. Then we're living in the same house in the room, and the people are departed from each other. They are involved in digital technologies, and the communication between them is not as appropriate as should have been. So our physical contacts even are reducing day by day because of this digitalization, and we see that even if we want to communicate someone, we go into the other room, and if someone is annoyed of one spouse is annoyed of the other spouse, and she or he may go another room and will communicate something to him or her. So this is happening. Normally we see that people are being psychologically separated. They are psychologically in isolation. So this psychological isolation is good, not a good thing for the family dynamics, while living together. So what I think that while even the exposure to the television, too much exposure to the digital media and social sites is creating some disturbances in our family system, that we are feeling short of this actual or actual communication that should have happened, and how we feel that is lacking. When we are together and we don't touch each other, we don't for example have physical contact with each other, we don't shake hands with each other. So this is short of I think the healthy moral development. So in this way, we can easily say that family system is also under threat a little bit because of this digitalization, and I think things should improve. At the same time, even digital technologies are influencing our workplace as well. So as we see that in a recent study by World Economic Forum, 75% of the new jobs will be created in the next 10 to 20 years because of rapid advancements of digital technologies. But people don't understand what to do and what new skills should have been learned to cope with the situation. So this again would create some sort of problems in near future, I think. So for those jobs, it is said that creativity is required, teamwork is required, problem skill and solve critical thinking and analytical and synthetic synthesis skills are required. But again, you can say because people are being involved in indoor activities and going in social isolation and psychological isolation as well. So we need to create a balance between indoor activities and outdoor activities, and the physical. When people are sitting for a long time in a room or exposed to digital technologies, so they don't go for exercises. I see normally, and also because of this physical fitness deficiency, and they are also prone to, you can say, some sort of diseases and so many health problems issues. So I think that regarding family issues as well as workplace issues and looking into their health issues, so we need to revisit our own self so that we may create a balance between the digital technologies as well as the outside activities and the social interaction and physical activities as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gulzar. Moving on towards Dr. Jameel. Dr. Jameel, we have heard many myths related to technology, especially in Pakistan. Our mothers always say that it will affect your cognitive ability, or maybe sometimes we have heard that some applications are considered very harmful. In the past, we have blue whale sort of apps. So, what do you think? What do you think about these myths? Are they really myths, or there is some reality in it?
Okay, thank you for giving me another opportunity to talk about it. Well, there is, of course, some reality. These are not myths, but these are not complete facts also. That because what I think is that everything in our life is potentially addictive. Everything that we like is addictive. The most addictive thing is human ourselves. We are most addictive to, for ourselves. Like if you are into the habit of someone that you love most, in their absence, how will you feel? You will be most vulnerable to get sick, mentally sick, or you will feeling the most withdrawal symptoms if some of your loved one with whom you are in habit to talk, you feel good while talking, or you feel good while spending your time with them. So everything is potentially addictive. I remember that when I was child, then at that time these digital games were not there, but I was addicted to that famous suspense novel series we call Imran series. Maybe some of you remember those things. I used to read Imran series novel in my blanket, putting it on that my parents cannot see, using a torch on it, and those are addictive. Everything now at this age, I am addicted to coffee, to caffeine. Anything that you like has the potential to become an addiction. Banning things is not a solution. If something is addictive, something is good, it has, and by good I mean that something that people like more. And unfortunately, these digital things are the things that kids are in love with. Maybe not only kids, anyone who is going to use them is going to be in love with them, with these things. If I am going to use it, I am getting in, I'm getting very much attached to those things. Banning is not a solution. Most of our, I was reading the comments that banning about the, I'm happy to see that these comments that most of our audience also think that banning is not a good solution. However, there was some compromise over like selective rules or selective banning, or there was also something about denial. like we have this banning solution for Pakistan. If there is some problem, just ban it. Banning actually creates more craving. Denial is not again a solution. If you stop using something, that doesn't mean that the thing that it's most like it's a desirable solution. It's of course it's an it gives you some benefit if you are in denial, if you avoid using thing, if you just delete your WhatsApp, if you delete some app that you feel like you are getting addicted to, or you feel like these are apps, these are making you more vulnerable to be to the dark side. Still avoid, it's called avoidance coping. Avoidance coping has some initial benefits, but again it's a negative coping. The best thing is problem focused coping. If we need to learn to be safe, to be to need to learn more positive use of those things while being safe, avoiding harm, avoiding the risk, and that how this can come is by not by banning or avoiding, by cognitive maturity, or by just using those things. The more you use them, the more you learn them. The more you learn them, the more you know how to better use them. So I think that there are negative things with those things, but negative things are with everything. So this is how I would like to, I think that we should promote using these things. Not we should not we should highlight the negative aspects, but we should not make people afraid of those negative things and make people afraid of the technology. Thank you.
Excuse me, Hafsa, I would like just to mention, to add it, that this, as doctor has said, that addiction and love for technology is okay. This is inevitable, perhaps. But my point is that the priority should be for the human beings. So this love priority should be for not for technologies, but for the human beings. Thank you.
Yes, you are very right. You are very right. Okay, moving towards a very different side of the technology, Dr. Bushra Hassan, your latest work is on area of digital gender divide. So, what is it, and how social and psychological gender divide, especially in the context of Pakistani youth? So, what do you say about it?
Thank you again, Hafsa. So one of the things that we have probably missed out in today's discussion is in order to ensure powerful digital world, one of the things that is missing in discussing is the inclusive future of technology, and that requires the participation of men as well as women. So with reference to that, I will briefly describe my own work. This is about digital gender divide. And by digital gender divide, we mean the disproportion in using, creating, and utilizing technology and it's a comparison between men and women, because women are represented in STEM fields, which include science, technology, engineering, and sciences, whereas there is a disproportionate representation of women on the other side, which is the healthcare, and which is usually labeled as heat. So this kind of a disproportionate, which we call as and label as digital gender divide, is a discussion more universal. However, with reference to particular reference to Pakistan, there are some certain very pressing and very salient risk factors which are very context dependent. One of the factors is that due to patriarchal society, it's very unfortunate, but let me like to elaborate that. Parents usually invest more in, because education which is dominantly based upon science and technology is far more expensive in comparison to social sciences and people. So when it comes to the education of boy and a girl, there are parents who like to invest more in the boy's education, and therefore there is a greater representation of men in professions such as science and technology. And this creates a kind of a gender divide, and in professional terms, this also gives rise to a wage gap between men and a woman. So, like we have already talked about, that 63% of the Pakistan's population will be comprising of people who are below 30, and that includes men and women. And I'm not precisely sure about the statistics, how much will be men and how much will be women, but I think it will be roughly 50-51%, an equal ratio. So if we talk about powerful digital work, this is something very alarming and something very pressing that needs highlighting and that needs debating. And I would like to highlight the key role of government to make some legislatives and watch out for that, as well as there should be some awareness campaigns driven by government or civil society organizations so that we can actually educate our people how important is. Of course, we are not going to undermine the importance of social sciences and heat disciplines, but technology itself is very important. An inclusive digital environment requires participation for men as well as for women. So therefore, I propose that there should be a holistic e-education for both parents and, and guardians. And besides, our youth is already quite equipped. So I would like all of the participants who are into a phase of choosing and aspiring for their career, so they should realize what career and what profession, what kind of education is going to benefit them in a longer run. So one of the ways that they can make a wise choice is the wise choice of their career. So in those ways, we will be able to bridge somehow the digital gender divide, and this is something which needs addressing so that we can ensure a more inclusive digital future for young people in Pakistan.
Thank you, Dr. Bushra. Heather, I would like to know something. Our audience would like to know. You are student representative here and working on some digital games and app. Will you elaborate on how digital games affect or your digital apps affect mental health of the youth?
Right. So if you're talking specifically, when we're talking about apps, so I'm making one app which is on guided meditation. Okay, and it's guided meditation in Urdu. It's very popular around the world. Wellness is a very huge industry, and the intersection between wellness and technology, called wellness technology, is a very big industry. So if you look at apps like Headspace or Simple Habit, there are many, there's Noom that can help you lose weight. So there are many apps that can help you sleep, help you de-stress, help you be more productive, and all of that. And I am working indeed on one of those. And it's very interesting because I was telling Dr. Tim in the comments as well that there's a community called the Transformative Technology Community. And one of the thought leaders there the pod was on slow tech. Okay, so slow tech is to use technology slowly. And so we're having a discussion on that. And a lot of the people is like, the way I use slow tech is I just turn my technology off. Go for a walk in the park. That to me, so but actually the thing is, it's not about that per se. It's about, so there's technology that can help your mental health. There's technology that can be bad for your mental health. But the idea though is to be mindful and conscious in the way that you use technology. And one of the great ways to learn that also can be through technology. So if a lot of people don't know about meditation or how to meditate. So you can learn how to meditate by using an app. And that's one of the things that I'm working on. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, Heather, thank you so much. We are moving towards our third phase of our panel discussion. Starting from Dr. Tim, we would take suggestions from you. And Dr. Tim, regarding environmental harm, what do you suggest about environmental harm caused by our digital world?
Thanks, Hafsa, for inviting me to say something about this. And you can see our little logo there. I'll just say a couple of words because we're short on time. But most people don't understand and don't realize the environmental harm of digital technologies. And the focus is on, now we're talking about COP26 coming up, the way in which digital tech can make everything much more efficient. But just to give you a couple of examples, some people have posted about the dumping of e-waste on poorer countries or economically weaker countries. But take a guess as to how Bitcoin, how much energy Bitcoin uses. It uses at the moment more energy than the whole of Argentina. And how is that energy produced? Mainly through traditional carbon. And the demand for energy is from the using video as we are now, and it's lovely to see everybody, and we all see this as a strength, but uses vastly more energy than if we were just on icons. And so there's been a huge explosion with video conferencing, for example. Another so-called fact, and there aren't any real things as facts, but a construct, is that the internet alone uses more carbon, emits more carbon than the whole of the airline industry. So it's getting the balance right, and we're exploring this. There's a lot of work that hasn't been done, and most of the work is just on carbon, and we have to see that in a much more holistic approach. That by trying to reduce carbon through digital tech, that causes a huge amount of other environmental harm. So have a look at desk.global. It's easy to find. If you're young, as we all are, we've just launched a youth desk on Instagram, and there's a really good post there today about the use of digital tech. A simple thing we can all do. When did you last buy one of these? This is actually an iPhone 8. It's old. It's out of date. It's not cool. But yeah, if you double the time between buying mobile phones, you halve the environmental impact of them, because it's in the construction of the phone that most energy is brought up. I could go on forever, Hafsa, but I thank you for giving me an opportunity to plug. And this is what I'm going to be working on for the next 5 years of my life. So it's really important, and we want to have as many people involved as possible. A holistic approach to digital environment, not one that just focuses on the good, and not one that just focuses on carbon and climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tem. Dr. Asir, your suggestion regarding control and positive use of technology.
I would just say that, technology is neutral, like it has been stressed before, and we need to be aware that technology use be not only responsible, but also address some real needs in society. So, I could be, so for instance, there are lots of entertainers on YouTube. There are lots of people who post things on Instagram. There is TikTok. There is all sorts of social digital media out there. But I think that the important thing is for us to use this digital and social media responsibly and for betterment of society, for not just youth. As I said earlier, I don't like categorizing people and then splitting them into these neat categories. So some people address gender, some people address youth versus older people. I would like to say that as long as we see people holistically as communities, as families, as groups of people together, we should then be able to use technology as part of that holistic view of society and not separate it out.
Thank you, Dr. Asir. Dr. Amna, as Dr. Asir has mentioned about cyber safety and other stuff. So what do you suggest about cyber bullying and cyber bystander, and how it is related to the technology? What's your suggestion about?
I would suggest that, of course, we have already established laws related to cyberbullying and cyber crimes, and all we need is to educate people that how we are going to implement them in the time of need. Other than that, for the conclusion, I have kept two important points to be discussed, and the one was fortunately and beautifully stolen by Mr. Heather. That was exclusively related to the use of, because I have been talking about the negative aspects of digital media all the time. So I just wanted to focus on that how can we improve mental health by using different digital apps, which was being well said by Mr. Heather Ali Sheesh Mahal. The second thing which I wanted to be pin out was related to the balance, which was being stolen by Anvi Tim beautifully, that of course the other important thing which we need to be stressed out is creating the balance between both of the sides. So I think if we just focus on these important points, so besides having, all the good and bad sides, looking forward towards creating the balance is the key to success in this situation. So this is all about, I would like to say, into inclusion. And thank you very much for providing the here at this panel discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Amna. Moving on to Dr. Gulzar. So what's your concluding comment about the topic? Dr. Gulzar.
Yes. There are so many things should be said, can be said about this topic, which is very, very important topic of the day. Number one is that all these technologies are beautiful, really, life has gone super. And we don't feel bored at any time. Waiting time is no problem for us. And even wherever we are connected, we feel happy and we feel pleasure and we feel young ever. Don't say us old. We are very young, I tell you. We are in the youth. Now again, we are in the youth because of these digital technologies. So this is the good thing. Number two is, it has given us so much good advantages to live a life in education, in workplace, in communications, in living a healthy lifestyle. Even so many good things are coming up with us. Number two point, which is again sometimes haunts me, that even if we are accelerating in this digital technologies, it is okay, but where we are going on, where we are heading on, is it creating some problems for us, or is it benefiting us, or what the word would be in the near future, you can say after 20, 30, 40, 50 years. As we all know that we are in the fifth generation war, right? Everybody knows and acknowledges that we are in the fifth generation war. What is fifth generation war? Digital war, okay? Any country, any nation, anyone can stop you working. Even, they can blast your bombs, they can stop your bombs, they can explode yourself, they can explode everything of your structures and infrastructures, and even all human beings. So this is, we in the dangerous era, very, very dangerous and critical stage we are all going on because of these digital technologies. For example, if any superpower captures all your bombs and arms and ammunitions and your internet activities and all your machines and equipments and planes and your every sort of things that you are doing today, so if they are overpower it for some time, what you can do? Nothing. You are freezed, squeezed. You can't do anything. So you can imagine what this digital technology will do with you. Okay. So this is the great caution. This fifth generation war is very, very critical war. And what is going on around is, we will have to be very, very careful and think about it. Number 2 point that I will mention is that, as I mentioned earlier, that what we have seen the last 2 decades during this accelerated pace of development of digital technologies, we have seen so many bad things at the same time regarding health, regarding mass killings, innocent people all around the world, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, so this is, there is no mercy for the people. I don't know where their conscience has gone. Even they admit it. They got wrong information. They did something wrong. Bush and Blair, what did they do in Iraq? What they did in Afghanistan? Then in Pakistan, in Myanmar, everywhere, Kashmir and Palestine and so many other soaring issues are going on, where the hunger and disease is prevailing all around the world at the same time. So many problems are there that need to be addressed. Okay, so I wish and hope that the young generation, or especially youth, will raise everyone's conscience that we call Zamir. Okay, if we don't raise the conscience of the people and we try to subjugate others or want to kill others ruthlessly with no reason at all men and women and children are nothing for them. My God, where they're living? Are they human beings? Are they human beings? This is a big question. What they're doing? Okay, so the point is that if they are empowered or they have higher digital technology or they are more equipped with this one, their conscience at least should be awakened. Can these machines can awaken their conscience? Let's see. I don't know. But the youth and our people and everyone around should look into this aspect that human beings are the most important objects and the things and living things in this world. Everything surrounds them. So we need to understand the importance of every human being, every human child, man, woman. These are the most beautiful things in the world. Allahu Jamilun wa yuhibbul Jamal. This is all, beauty is all around. So we should not destroy this beauty. So they should learn lesson at least, especially these stupid people who are killing innocent people. So this is the great lesson. I think we need to educate all these people that they should live life, have peaceful coexistence, lead to live a healthy life. They should fight against hunger and disease and the calamities and the problems that are prevailing around. So rather they should invest in useless things or the negative things. So the point is that lastly I would say that human conscience should be awakened so that all human beings can live together in peace, harmony and happiness and healthy development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gulzar. Over to Dr. Jamil. Your suggestion regarding or your concluding comment regarding the topic.
Thank you. Only one conclusion in one line. Balance is that what we need, and the balance cannot be created by external forces. It need to be internalized. So it's all about us, how we do things, how we use things. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jamil. At last but not the least, Heather Ali Sheesh Mahal, what do you like to comment?
It's a bit of a sort of a humor right now. I was about to comment it on the chat, but it would be so interesting in 2050 or 2060 or whenever we are sitting on some moon base or some other extra Earth facility where we'll be talking about sustainable technology. I hope you get the irony of that statement, because without sustainable technology, we have been destroying the Earth and we continue to destroy the Earth. But in the end, it's also our escape pod out of the Earth, and to be able to make our species, go past this one world. So it would be an interesting existential debate to be having on sustainable technology while we are on a rock, which could only be sustained because of technology. So that's the thought that I want to leave with, is just thinking about the future and how to make it better here and for tomorrow, how to harness technology for ourselves the way we do for anything in life.
Thank you, Heather. On the behalf of National Institute of Psychology and our director, Professor Dr. Rubina Hanif, we would like to extend our gratitude to all our worthy panelists and for sparing their time from their busy schedule and reflecting on the importance of use of digital technology. Thank you so much for joining in. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you very much for the hosts. Great work done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.